Students who had a relationship with a teacher. How did it start and how did it turn out? I slept with one of my professors in college. At the time I was 19 or 20 and she was in her mid-30s. I went to see her during her office hours. We talked for a few minutes and when I went to leave she gave me a long hug and told me, "You give really nice hugs," as she held onto my arms. I asked for her number and went on my way. We exchanged a few flirty text messages over the next few days before she invited me over to her apartment to help her hook up a new TV she had bought. We ended up sleeping together about 10 times before she moved away to take a new job at a different school. That was an expensive excuse to bring you up to her apartment. I had a crush on one of my grad school teachers for a year and a half. I was into everything about her. Looks, brains, just everything. I ended up teaching the same subject many years later, and I still use the notes and materials from her class with my own students. She was engaged to someone else, so I never even thought about anything ever happening. It was a nice fantasy. Then, out of the blue, she calls my cell phone and tells me that she's thinking of getting into yoga and knows that I'm into yoga. So, would I get a drink with her and tell her more? I was not exactly experienced with hookups, and I actually took her at her word. I went in expecting to talk about yoga and go home afterwards. We ended up getting totally wasted, making out in the middle of the bar, and then I walked her home where I kept saying I'm sorry and this definitely isn't happening. And I'll just get you to your door and go home. It did happen, but the joke was on her. She got a few seconds of the worst sex of her life, then got to listen to me in the bathroom for a while. The next day she found me in the hallway and told me that it was a huge mistake and asked me not to tell anyone. Nobody would believe me anyway, so I agreed. I can honestly say I wish the entire thing had never happened. She got married and moved on with her life. I ended up having to take her husband's class before I could graduate. So I actually didn't know she was my teacher. She was maybe 23, 24, and I just turned 17. I was in California during summer vacation. Went to Disneyland, California Adventure, all the fun stuff. Met her while waiting in the line for the Winnie the Pooh ride. None of my friends wanted to go with me. We had fun, hit it off, and eventually got to her hotel room. Spent the weekend meeting up and hanging out, and then we parted ways. First day of the new semester comes around and I see her in the classroom, and I'm excited. I didn't know she went to this school. And so I went in and sat down, and she goes up to the front of the room and introduced herself to everyone. Then we did the whole get to know each other thing and what we did over summer. Once she got to me, her face turned purple like she couldn't breathe. When I was 17, I had a fake ID and went out to the bar with a couple older friends after a hockey game. We met a group of girls there, and we hung out for most of the night. I ended up going home with one of the girls. We hooked up that night, we exchanged numbers, and I left in the morning. So Monday comes around, I go to school, and I walk into my first period class, and the same girl I hooked up with is a supply teacher. Her face was about as red as an apple, and I was strutting in my seat like Vince f***ing McMahon. It started innocently enough. She was my chorus teacher, fresh out of college and only 6 years older than me. My brother was actually dating her friend from high school. I used to cut class and say I had a music lesson, and we'd just hang in the music room, talk about books, music, and movies. Then she started complaining about her relationship a lot, needing hugs, which I was more than happy to help with. It eventually turned to making out, and we finally started hooking up when she gave me rides home after school. I honestly felt like I found $1 million, but couldn't tell anybody about it. It was weird. Then she got weird, asking for hugs in front of the entire class. I knew everyone knew. I started riding home with my friends again. Then she started just showing up at my house. Had a very awkward convo with my dad, who knew exactly what was going on, but was so impressed that he just kept saying, "Damn, she's pretty." Ghosting hadn't been invented back then, but I did the best I could. Eventually, she chilled out. A few months later, I stopped by her room during our normal hang sesh times. And she apologized, told me she was just going through a lot with her shitty boyfriend and needed some attention from someone that actually liked her. We didn't talk much after that. I graduated soon after, but we're friends on Facebook, and she actually married a decent guy and has a nice family. I'm very relieved we were never found out. It would have been devastating to both of us. My religious studies college professor. She was hilarious and brilliant and always brought her interests up in class, and they usually aligned with mine. It started off with what felt like on-topic to class discussions, then into more friendly, casual conversations about books and movies, then it definitely transitioned into flirting, which was weird because I'm also female and I'd never had feelings for another girl, so I thought it could just be some weird fantasy in my head, and I was just making something out of nothing. I submit my final at noon by 1 p.m. She emails me my final grade and says, "I'm all done submitting your grades, so you're officially no longer my student. Congrats on passing the class and good luck." So I sent back an email with a song attached, and then the emailing went on from there before we officially hung out, which led to sex, which led to a 3-year relationship. We moved in together for about a year, but it ultimately didn't work out because we wanted different things long term. And I'm grateful for the relationship now 5 years out, as it helped me realize what I want in a partner. I now have an amazing boyfriend, and I heard she recently got married to a woman she started dating after me. And that's all the time we have for today. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below.